Hey everybody, Matt Barton here with this week's Broker Minute or Two, which is part two of the three-part series on what the DRE shares with us that should be important to us as licensees, as contained in the Q4 2023 newsletter. Now listen, don't let that get you too excited, but this one actually is, wow. If you need a wake-up call, here's one for you. All right, so on my screen here, let me move my picture over here. This is an article out of the division's newsletter. It says, recently the EPA has been sending notices to Utah real estate brokerages of imminent inspections for compliance with lead disclosure rules. Typically, they're given 2 weeks before the audit, and they want all residential transactions over the last 3 years, including house type and usage. And oh, by the way, the EPA and the government can fine you up to $19,507 per violation. Did that get your attention? What if you sold a fourplex? What if you sold a sixplex and you didn't do things right? You did that 19. Let's just round up to 20,000 on a sixplex. Now becomes a $120,000 potential fine. I don't know about you. I don't make enough money to blow off $120,000. So let's hit this in rapid fashion. A lot of ground to cover, and I am aware this is Broker Minute or Two. So this section talks about sellers' responsibilities, and basically it's stuff that we should already know, which is that we need to provide the pamphlet, right? Protect your family from lead-based paint in your home. Just for the record, in SkySlope, in our forms section, we have a copy of this all ready to send. I should say in SkySlope forms. So pretty easy for you to attach and jump that hurdle. It talks about the agent responsibilities. Agents must ensure that the sellers and the landlords, not just sellers, and landlords, if you're representing a landlord, are aware of their obligations. And oh, by the way, retain documentation of the disclosure and the warning pamphlet and everything you've done for at least 3 years. And you can see in my little red box here, I said that is why we require them to be in SkySlope. Not only will we hold them for 3 years, we will hold them forever, which gives you, me, and the clients protection, and the company. All right, forms and compliance. So really two main components. And it's important that we get this order. I still get this from time to time. Agents like, well, I didn't do the lead-based paint disclosure because we did the lead-based paint addendum. Dude, that is not what the federal regulation says. It says you shall provide not only the pamphlet, but a disclosure. And the correct sequence is typically pamphlet, so you're aware of what the issue is, disclosure, which is, hey, here's everything the seller knows, and then the buyer gets to elect whether to do further risk assessment, which would be contained in the lead-based paint addendum. So it's usually in that sequence, okay? Failure to comply. What if the seller fails to comply? Hey, guess what? The agent can be responsible. So, take this for what it's worth. Paper trail is huge, especially in issues like this. If we show that we did it, and if the seller is not complying, then our obligation is to let the other side know. Our fiduciary of confidentiality, there we go, evaporates, goes away when something that is supposed to be disclosed is not being disclosed by the seller and that we're aware of. So make sure you have a good paper trail. Also, it does not, just because you didn't disclose, it does not invalidate a contract. That's an important point as well. And then the last part of this, here, that there are steep penalties, possibility of triple damages, potential civil and criminal penalties. Guys, this is a big deal, big deal. So I wanted to go really quickly to, it makes reference at the end here to, you can see on my screen here, 24 CFR. So this is section 24 of the Code for Federal Regulation, section 35.88, and I have that on screen here and what it talks about. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but section A says, hey, by the way, and this is an important point, the following activities, meaning the disclosures, shall be completed before the purchaser or lessee is obligated under any contract to purchase or lease. Wow, did you know that was supposed to be done before you accept a contract? And then it goes on to say in section B, if the disclosure activities identified up in paragraph A occurs after the purchase or the lessee has provided an offer to purchase, the seller or the lessor shall complete. You still have an obligation to complete the required disclosures prior to accepting the purchaser's or lessee's offer, and allow the purchaser or the lessee the opportunity to review and possibly amend their offer. I don't know how to say this then just directly with you guys. When it comes to federal regulations, you don't have the luxury of, well, circumstances were this, that, and the other. The federal government doesn't care. If these things aren't done, pure and simple, you're open to a violation. As we started off with, it can be very expensive. I read one a few years ago where somebody had apartment complex with, I'm trying to remember, it was either 10 or 20 units, and they all had violations. Ooh, very spendy, really fast. So the last thing I wanted to hit on was just the lead-based paint disclosure as well, and why this is so important. So let's state this. If you're representing a seller and it's a pre-1978 home, make sure anytime sends an offer, the first thing you should be firing off is the lead-based paint pamphlet and your lead-based paint disclosure. Make that clear enough? Those things are the first two things that should come out right before accepting the offer. You get one, quickly send these things out. You may even want to attach these things to the listing so that you're not even in jeopardy, even to that degree. Okay, so the other things on this is just I see agents screw this up all the time. It is required by federal law. You can see that up above, and it's for homes prior to 1978. And I highlighted these sections: one box only, one box only, one box only. These are either or conditions. So are you aware of the presence of lead, or you have no knowledge? It's one or the other. You don't get to go halfway in between. And then, oh, by the way, do you have any records? Yes, I do, or no, I don't. And then here's where the protection comes in for you, me, the company, our sellers, right? One, the seller has attached the EPA pamphlet. That's your job as their agent. Sellers reviewed the above information and certifies to the best of their knowledge it's accurate. And the buyer has 10 days. We're positively declaring that they have 10 days, right? And this is where the seller signs. And below, section 2 is where the seller's agent, I have the buyer's agent sign sometimes here. It's very clear right there. It says seller's agent has informed, and then you're putting your signature to it. And then the last part is, this is the conditional of whether we find out the lead-based paint addendum is coming into play or not, right? So the buyer, by signing this, and this is why it's important we get a signed copy back in all cases, in every case possible. And if not, we better have a paper trail of when we sent it to them and they just refuse to sign it. But in most cases, they sign it. And here's why it's important to get a signed copy back is buyer has received all the things listed above. They've also received the pamphlet. And they're either, one box only, going to take a 10-day opportunity, in which case we will have the lead-based paint addendum. Lead-based paint addendum. Better highlight that. Or they opt not to do any further assessment, which means the lead-based paint addendum is not required. So there's more than you wanted to know about lead-based paint disclosure, why it is so important from a risk and liability and financial standpoint. So if you have any specific questions about that, give me a quick call or your area broker. Other than that, make sure these things are sent out. $20,000 is a lot of money, for instance. Have a good one. Sorry for being Dr. Feelgood.